by those that you're going to use those scoring sheets on, right? So I'd like to introduce our first presentation, and while I do that, get ready, if you want to kind of mic up here. What I'll say is kind of every location, as you're all aware of for the riders anyway, the local host kind of set up whatever the process was for the individuals to pitch. And here in Randolph, one of the reasons we decided to host was helping people get ready to pitch their business to secure financing is what we do every day, often behind closed doors and in a confidential setting. In the last 18 months, clients of ours secured $40 million in new financing and started 115 new businesses. So we're excited to be part of this venture. And so we invited people to give us an executive summary, had them come to an information session to get some information about the rules, the 9 boxes of Fresh Checks Capital. We made some coaching available to them and a rehearsal, and here we are today. So I introduce to you our first of 4 presentations. Mike Palmer, WinBeforeTrial. This is a case value and risk analyzer software for legal professionals and their clients. Take it away, Mike.
Thank you very much. And good afternoon, everyone. It's great to be here. My name is Mike Palmer, and let's see if we can get this thing to work. Yeah. What I want to talk about is how lawyers and law firms can use the case value and risk analyzer to help their clients avoid wasting money and get better outcomes, and also increase profits both for the law firms and the clients, and of course usher in world peace. Well, actually not world peace, but it is better than sliced bread. So there was a trucking company that had a truck going down the highway, it overturned, and they called a wreck recovery expert. Let's get back to the wreck recovery expert. During the course of his work, he shattered his left elbow, multiple surgeries, over $300,000 of medical bills. And he thought he had a lawsuit against the trucking company, and his lawyer said, oh, this case is worth about $2.5 million. The defense attorney, on the other hand, said, well, we think there's 35% comparative negligence here, and we also think the plaintiff doesn't have more than a 25% chance of winning the trial. We think that if he does win, we're going to appeal, and we have a 25% chance of winning on appeal, and damages could be anywhere from $300,000 to $2.5 million, and our expenses, our legal fees, are going to be somewhere around $115,000. So the question is, what is, given those assumptions, what is the defendant's financial risk? Anybody know the answer? Put differently, what would a rational defendant pay to settle this case? Remember, 95% of all cases are not tried to a verdict or settled by agreement. So what would a rational defendant pay to settle this case? The unassisted brain cannot make that computation. It's just too many things going on, too many moving parts, too much to keep in mind at the same time. So we can't do that computation. So instead, what lawyers do is they stake out extreme positions. So, and then they haggle, like merchants in the bazaar. Literally. If you've not ever done this, I'm telling you, this is the way it's done. So the plaintiff's lawyer will say, well, we want $2.5 million, and the defense attorney will say something like, are you smoking dope? This case ain't worth more than $25,000. That's our offer. And then they'll go back and forth. They'll bluster and bluff. They'll make threats. They'll come down a little bit. They say, we're out of here. Unless you get serious, we're leaving. And so what often happens is they end up like this. And the outcomes are not optimal. They're suboptimal. We have scientific studies that show that lawyers do a poor job at case valuation. In other words, we don't know what cases are really worth. In 85% of the cases that go to trial, civil cases, at least one side does worse than the last settlement offer. Pretty bad track record. So here's an example. Defendant a couple of weeks before trial said, we'll give you $100,000 to settle this case. The plaintiff said, well, we want $5 million. Jury came back at $25 million. Yeah, that's what happens. And I know this because I've been a lawyer since 1980, first, mostly in litigation, and then a mediator since 1993, first with Jenner & Block in Chicago, and then as head of my own firm in Middlebury. And this is the story that I've gone through, like other lawyers. And so a few years ago, I developed a program to help deal with this problem. And when I used it in litigation and mediation context, I'd find other lawyers would say things like, well, this is a great tool, or where can I get one? Or you should patent this. So I've had requests from a major insurance company, mediators, lawyers, courtroom attorneys, judges, professors, and finally I got around to creating a commercial version, which I call the Case Value and Risk Analyzer. So I'm going to give you a little demonstration here, if I can get this thing to advance. Come on, don't freeze up on me here. So I'm going to take the facts that I recited from the defense attorney just a moment ago and plug them into the Case Value and Risk Analyzer. And on the left-hand column over here, you put in the information, and on the right-hand column will start to appear the calculations from this information. So we put in the data that we had just a moment ago on that slide. I'm sure you remember all of the things. And over here, down here at the bottom, you'll see the net present financial risk will be calculated as this information is entered on the left. And you get a version for the other side as well, and you get a side-by-side comparison of the two views of the case, and finally you get a settlement analysis page. So this will give you a comparison between what each side's offer in proposal and settlement compares with the walkaway offer. So that's a little bit of an overview. This is what the actual computation would be for those facts I recited a little bit earlier. Randy Kaiser, who's the author of the studies that I cited, says this tool is a vast improvement over what most attorneys are using right now, working with. So what are they doing? Well, most of them are doing the haggling thing I talked about. Some of them are using decision tree technology. And the problem with decision tree technology is that there's a steep learning curve. It's opaque, and it's cumbersome to use. This, by comparison, is easier to use, lets you do multiple what-if scenarios, and is more transparent for clients. Plus, it has this unique settlement analysis page. Overall, it lowers costs and increases profits. So, right now, the estimated market size is about 450,000 lawyers. And at the moment, we is mostly me. I'm at the very beginning stages of this, but I do have some expert assistance on an advisory board. And I filed a provisional patent application. This is my vision to create a litigation risk management system, which will mean the transformation of litigation lawyers from reactive lawsuit processors to proactive litigation risk managers. At the moment, I'm working on a product market fit, and so I'm in the design phase of the process. I'm offering the product with a 30-day free trial and an online introductory demonstration, a 2-hour CLE course, and this is how you can help. So I'm not looking for money right now. I'm looking for help making connections, people who would flesh out the advisory board, and also connections with other people who might use this, and perhaps also co-founders. So thank you very much for your attention, and I look forward to your questions.
That was very good. Is this cloud-based as a program?
I'm sorry?
Is this interaction, will this be cloud-based? Will this be online, or will this be a program on your own?
At the moment it is not, and it is not yet determined whether it will be. So at the moment it's a very beginning form of the software. We have a lot of work to do, or whoever I get to help with this, will have a lot of work to do to transform it into a more robust software with a better user interface, and possibly we can do that so that it will be a software as a service business model.
Just quick, if the information could be gotten back from the cloud, from the outcome, that would be a benefit.
Yes. So one of the slides I had up there earlier, one of the things on it, if I can get this to move back, I can't, talked about 4 different aspects of litigation risk management. One of them is litigation intelligence, which is comparable to business intelligence, except that no law firm that I know of does anything remotely similar to that for litigation. And that's what you're touching on, and that's part of the vision.
So it seems like, if I understand it right, the way this works is an attorney has a potential case in front of them. They sort of make some assumptions on all these inputs. Is it possible with this software that if my law firm buys it, that over time it would collect my experience of doing all these cases, and could that be used to refine the, I guess, the algorithms that are
Well, I think that's similar to the question I had earlier, and the answer is that's part of the vision. That's going to take a lot more computing power than I know how to do right now. So I actually wrote this program, and it took me a while to learn how to do that, but I had no ambitions to become a programmer, and that's part of the next step. But yes, both at the law firm level and at the professional level, and now with the advent of artificial intelligence, think IBM Watson, we'll be able to do a lot of stuff like that that has not been done before.
Can I ask one more? When this thing really rolls, doesn't it put a lot of lawyers out of work?
No. It puts bad lawyers out of work. It gives the good lawyers a competitive advantage, but that's the simple answer to that.
So Andrew, way in the back.
So based off the assumptions, does this ever lead to both sides becoming more extreme in their assumptions?
It hasn't been my experience. I don't have that much experience using it.
Both sides have the same software and eventually learn how it kind of thinks and how it's calculated. Wouldn't it behoove them then to put in these massive numbers on either side?
Well, this gets into a subject where we need more extensive discussion, but actually, let me try to boil it down. There are 2 major problems with case valuation. There are 3 actually, but the 2 that I want to focus on are uncertainty, we don't know what's going to happen, and complexity, managing the information. What this tool does is deal with the complexity problem. And it's also a form of checklist that takes you through the things you need to be thinking about. So instead of jumping to a conclusion, this is a $2.5 million case, and just trying to negotiate off that number, it requires you to go through an analysis of the case. What's the likelihood that we're going to win? How much is the damage going to be? What are our costs? And it helps you compute all of that information. And actually what it does, to answer your question, Andrew, is it wakes people up. You see things you did not see before, both on the plaintiff and the defense side. And the way the tool is constructed, you guess at how the other side is thinking about this, and by doing that, you also get an insight into what they might be thinking. So this is the defendant's perspective. The plaintiff's version of this, when you fill it out with a little bit better assumptions from the plaintiff's perspective, the surprising thing is, with answer to your question, it does not come up with an extreme number. It comes up with one that's rather close. And actually, if when I ran this through, not trying to come up with anything in specific, I got really close numbers, close enough for a settlement. And the reason for that is plaintiffs have to subtract their costs, their legal fees, from whatever judgment they recover, and defendants have to add theirs to whatever judgment they have to pay. So let's say the jury comes back with a $100,000 verdict, and the plaintiff has $50,000 in legal fees, and the defendant has $50,000 in legal fees. The plaintiff has a net $50,000, and the defendant has a $150,000 cost. And if you realize that early on, you can say, hey, I'd be better off paying $75,000 now to settle this case than paying $150,000 later. depending on whatever the likelihood is and so forth. It's a little bit more than that I wanted to go into, but does that answer your question?
Yeah.
Thank you.
So I had David first, so let's see.
Cool presentation, and definitely gets you thinking about removing the lawyer aspect of life, and the plaintiff and the other side can both put in the software and say, here's how much money we're going to pay and off we go. But
Yeah.
there's an emotional component to the legal side of life that's hard to measure in that algorithm, is it not?
Yes and no. So there's a companion tool to this, which is an interest analysis tool that I've developed, which helps you get at what I call the intangible interests that relate to a lawsuit. So to take a very common example, an employment discrimination case. A person claims she has been sexually harassed. They go to mediation. Her lawyer has demanded $200,000. Defense doesn't want to pay that. They get to the mediation. The CEO from the company shows up and apologizes profusely. The settlement demand goes down considerably because an emotional component has been addressed in that. So that's one yes. The other is, in the cost factor, what I did here was just use the financial cost. The direct money out, the direct expense, what you're writing a check for. But there are other costs in litigation that will be factored into this that I have a built-in system for opportunity costs, for lost time for executives and so forth. Those also need to be, and once you start focusing on those things, you think about litigation differently.
So we're out.
Okay, thank you.